Hey, welcome back to the Club Junkie Podcast. It's another Thursday, exciting week. We've got a pretty special show. But before we get into it, just want to let you know this episode is brought to you by Titleist and the Titleist Fitting Experience. If you want to improve your game, a Titleist Fitting Experience is the fastest way to get better. A certified Titleist fitter can help any player at any point in their journey find the right clubs to unlock another level of play. Listen, custom fittings are not just for scratch golfers or better players. They're for any player who's looking to get better. High handicap, low handicap, it doesn't matter. Your Titleist fitter is going to start to get to know you and your game, and your needs are going to drive that fitting experience to where it needs to go. Every club you hit will be the exact club you would order. There's no guesswork or hoping that some recommendations will work. You're going to hit a bunch of different products, a bunch of different combinations. I know when I got fit for my irons, my T1, T200, T150 combo set, we hit a ton of stuff, hit all the irons, TrackMan data to back it up. It was great. So if you want to play your best golf, the first step is simple. Go to Titleist.com and find a Titleist fitter near you. Titleist Fitting Experience is the fastest way to get better. Titleist.com. Check out the Titleist Fitting Experience. Like I said, you guys know I've talked about it a bunch before. It was a blast. But yeah, we got a cool show today. This is my first guest of 2024. Actually, my first guest in probably even longer than that. We haven't had a whole lot of guests on this show. But yeah, we've got a special one. It is going to be Alex D from Aretera Shafts. If you're not familiar with them, brand new shaft company. Alex D has been around a long, long time. He's been in the business designing shafts. He's designed some very famous shafts that you've probably hit. And yeah, he's going to get into the nitty gritty on his new Alpha 1 Gray, Alpha 1 Blue. Talk about those two shafts that they're doing right now. Why he's doing this new venture, all that. He's going to get into it, but Alex is an awesome guy, and he'll explain, he'll dig into the weeds a little bit, which is pretty fun. So chatting with him for this episode, and it's going to be a blast. So hopefully we'll talk to you guys next week, but enjoy this interview with Alex D. It's a great one. All right, here we are. I told you guys I had a special guest, and my special guest is with me now. Alex D., one of the founders of Aretera Shafts. But you've been around this business a long time, Alex, but thank you so much for being on, man. I appreciate you coming on, taking the time. I'm excited to talk about some new stuff, new shafts, new company, whole bunch of new stuff. It's going to be exciting few minutes here for us to chat it up. How are you doing?
Doing great, Brian. I've been super looking forward to this, being with the club junkie himself. So appreciate you having me on.
Well, we've been fortunate. We've been kind of talking about this new project of yours for a little while now. Before you guys kind of went public and announced this new venture, we've had the benefit of talking to kind of you and your team, and kind of got a sense of what you guys are doing. But definitely wanted to have you on to kind of talk. We've got if anybody could guess, if you know Alex from the golf world, he's a shaft guy, and we've got brand new shafts, and for me, as soon as you said that, my eyes got big. I was excited. I couldn't wait to get my hands on them, see them, touch them, everything. So it's pretty exciting. But, before we get into this brand new venture, give us just a little history. I mean, you've been in the golf business a long time. And if you don't know Alex, you have probably hit something that he's had his hands in. You've hit something out there in the golf world that he's been a part of, been creating. So just give us a little rundown, kind of how you got into golf, and kind of where we're going now with Aretera.
Yeah, sure. My background is in mechanical engineering, and I did my master's with a focus on composite materials. So my love has been in the design and use of composite materials. And there's so many different ways to apply composites, but it was just so fortunate that I came upon golf, knowing that it was once, and it maybe still is, one of the largest users of composite materials in the world. I think for a while, the only thing that took it over was Boeing building a bunch of planes with a lot of composite materials. Other than that, by volume, golf consumed just so much composite, so that it was like an interesting field to go into. I got a lucky break coming out of undergrad to work at a company called Horizon Sports Technologies, and they did golf shafts. I had a good friend who got me a job there, and it was my first foray into a working world, and it was just a great opportunity to be there. And I worked there just for a year and a half before deciding to go to grad school. And when I came out, I'm like, what am I going to do? I really liked to stay in school more than go into the real world at the time. And, it was an opportunity to either go into like aerospace, and somehow golf kept calling me back. And somehow my resume got in the hands of, Fujikura, and they reached out to me back in 1998. And and I worked there for about 25 years. You know, and
Wow.
by the time I left, I was vice president and responsible for the R&D and design, and a lot of product ideation and stuff like that. So it was a great ride, great people there. I did a lot of great things with them, and proud of the work, right? But eventually, just a time for me, I think, to move on, find more challenges, be able to spend more time with my family. Like, I have 2 kids that are growing up, and I think in a couple years or less, they're in college. So it was just a rethought of where I am in my life and what am I looking for, and just an opportunity to try something different, right? And so I left, and for whatever reason, again, Shafts called again.
Yep. So that's
And
the new thing. I mean, the new company. Talk a little bit about that. We got a brand new company, new name, everything, and you guys have just
Aretera.
started. What is it, been about a month at Fitters, at retail and Fitters,
we
about a
launched
month.
in early April, correct?
Yeah.
So we're very new. We've got a lot to prove and a lot of trust to earn. But we're excited about the product. We worked hard on it. We did a lot of player evaluation, and that's one of the crazy things about design. There is, I have a track record of making great products, and I'm fortunate for that. But there's no necessarily a silver bullet that it's always going to work. It takes effort, it takes work, it takes a lot of player evaluation. And even when you go through all that, there's always going to be a fraction of people that love it and a fraction of people that absolutely hate it. And, you on the reviewing side, I love to sit where you sit because, man, you just get a bunch of product. You get to try it and,
That's right.
and make those statements of, thumbs up, thumbs down. So it's fun. It's exciting, and it's golf. In the long run, what I think is fantastic about this industry is, whatever challenges I have, whatever work that's difficult, we look back and say, guys, look, we're in golf. How fortunate are we, right?
Yeah.
You got the
100%.
best job of them all. You look at you, man. You're building clubs and living your dream.
Hey, I'm about to say, I can tell you, I've had a lot of jobs in my life, and a lot of them have been worse than this one. I can admit that 100%. So, but no, you guys have a really cool team. A lot of the people on your team have been in the golf business or a part of the golf business for, like you said, I mean, you've been around it for 25 years. A lot of guys on your team have been 20 years, 10 years. I mean, you didn't just grab a bunch of kind of random people off the street. You guys kind of put together a team of individuals who've been in this game, working in this game for, decades. And it's pretty cool to kind of see that, come out and, be kind of part of your brand, which is just a ton of experience.
Yeah, and a piece of that is, when you think about starting a company, the beauty of it is that you get to form a team, right? And so
Yep.
it can be a great thing to be able to choose the right people that you think are a great fit. And this was the opportunity to do that. And and one of the people that's on our team, Bill Stiles, he's worked in the industry for so many years, and he's been a friend of mine for so long. He had a great opportunity where he was, in decal rep and helping people develop graphics. He's worked with me on a lot of projects. It was just a complete aligning of stars that he was looking for something different as well. And so fortunate that would happen. We could pick Bill up, and he would join us as a co-founder. Michel DeFontaine is a friend of mine from my days at University of California, San Diego, and he's more of a golfer than all of us, but he has really no experience in the golf industry. So I think in some ways that helps. He's got a lot of great experience in operations, and growing small businesses from a financial and responsibility, legal accounting point of view. And so that's a great three legs of to hold something up, like the foundation wise. Us three, Bill and Chris Elson have been great friends, because Bill worked as a rep for graphic decal development. And he worked with companies like Mitsubishi, Fujikura, True Temper, etc., Callaway, TaylorMade. And he's known Chris Elson. They've been great friends, for several years. And I've only known Chris from a name point of view because, he's had spent time at Matrix, he spent time at Mitsubishi. In some ways, he's a competitor. And so I didn't know him that well. And so when Bill said, I got a good friend named Chris, and I'd like to bring him on board. He's curious about what we're doing. Got to meet Chris. He's such a great guy, and he's has such enthusiasm for what he does. He's been great, right? And he has such great contacts in the field in the golf industry. So it's been just a fantastic experience having us four work together on a lot of the strategy and product. Then our marketing team includes people like Kai, Kristen, these guys, and Sam. These guys work really hard putting together our social media side. We're trying to understand how that all works because we're the elders and we're like social media, like TikTok or Reels. What the hell is that? So we're
Yeah.
You're really good at though, Brian.
Hey, well, I don't know about that. I think I'm even on the older side of that stuff. So it's funny. It is. I rely on some of the guys on our team as well. So I'll admit that. But so yeah,
I don't speak to you good, so you need other people to get on these podcasts. But
that's right. We get other people to actually promote it. I just kind of get on here.
I don't want to do the design. Hide me in the office.
And it's interesting because a brand new company, all that, you would think when a shaft company like this comes out, you're not going to get a lineup of 10 different shaft models and all this stuff. I mean, it's going to be a little limited coming out of the gate as you get going, but I think it was still pretty impressive that we actually saw 2 shafts right out of the gate. I mean, I think when first talking and everything, I kind of expected maybe 1, and then when you guys mentioned, we're going to have 2 models right out of the gate. Pretty interesting that you went with 2 instead of 1. How did that come about? I mean, when like I said, you've got a small team, you're new. How do you have the kind of time and dedication to do 2 models as opposed to maybe just focusing on 1? Or was it a little, I don't want to say easier, but did kind of making 1 kind of move into the second, and it makes it a little less resource dependent to do 2 as opposed to doing 1? Or how does that work out to come out with 2 models?
Obviously, I mean, 1 is easier than 2, and 2 is easier than 3, and you keep going that way. But we want to be true to fitting, and to be true to fitting it means that you offer choices, and that's an important part of the fit, because if it's likely 1 is only good for a small percentage of people who are trying it, and if you're dialing something in and you're close but you're just a little bit off, having that another option that has a slightly different feel but other properties that maybe are similar, it could lead to just that difference in the ball flight and the spin, the direction you're looking for, and the feel. So for me, it was because I didn't think we had the bandwidth for 3. 3 flights. 3 flights is very common. You get this idea that you have a low, mid, and high. And I knew we were small and young and had to earn a lot of trust. And and if you go to a place like Club Champion or Cool Clubs or True Spec or any of your local mom and pops, there's only so much space on a wall. Like, look behind you, there's only so many slots, right? And so we couldn't come out with 100 SKUs and say, take all 100 and take 100 shafts that off a wall and replace them with ours. It's just, we kind of had some realistic views on that and wanted to make sure that we did something that was feasible. And so two profiles, we call them profiles, not more by flight.
Yep.
The idea of having 2 profiles was to simplify that and to build our brand from a starting point of some more of a simplistic point of view. And so, if you look at Alpha 1, the differences in the 2 profiles. We have a blue and a gray. And the main difference is tip flex, where the gray is about 10% stiffer in the tip. But we keep the same torque. We keep the same weight balance. We keep the same, bending profiles, except at the tip. And so in some ways, it's simpler to design that. And and the feel is the difference, the performance is different, but we don't define it by ball flight. And that's really because as much as I think a lot of consumers want to be given the Cliff Notes version of what a shaft does, it's not always an exact one-to-one mapping. And the golfer himself, or the person, the golfer, is going to add some variation to the way the part performs. And to be true to that means that it makes more sense to let the fitter do the work and do the analysis and determine whether a stiff tip really is creating less spin and less launch, because sometimes that's not the case. And so if we pigeonhole the shaft and say, look, that's a low launch, and then someone hits high, they might go, well, that's a low launch, don't fit me into that, you're doing it wrong. But if they would have hit it, it could have been the right shaft, and they just refused based on its color or based on its profile description or its launch description, right?
Yep. And also too, I mean, I think when people start looking online and you look at colors of, like, you said, you have blue, we have gray, and there's associated flights and spins and stuff with those colors, but not only does it maybe not perform exactly the same for every player, and you and I know that yes, something could be labeled low launch, low spin, and somebody could hit it higher than something that's mid launch or whatever. I mean, every swing is different. You don't know exactly how it's going to react to that swing. But I also think there's also, in the mind, everybody has that window of what is mid, what is high, and what is low. And even if you were to say, hey, even if the marketing was gray's low launch, low spin, which it's not, and somebody hits it, and say it does come out low, but to them, in their mind, well, that's more mid. They're still kind of playing that game with themselves of, well, is it doing what I thought? And, do they have the kind of the confidence or whatever in it? And right. so it's very interesting that you guys kind of build around that, because there are a lot of people that when you see someone hit a ball and they go, oh, you hit that too high. And you go, well, to me, that's like perfect. That's where I want to hit it. And everybody has a different perception as well of what is high, low, and mid, and the same thing goes for spin, because you and I swing it differently, and to me a low spin shaft is probably a different number than it is to you. Your low spin number is different. So being able to see those things on a monitor, and it kind of can make people think differently about a product and how they perceive it as well, not just what it does in strictly a numbers vacuum.
Correct.
So we've got two shafts, like you mentioned. We have the blue and the gray. So Alpha 1, blue, gray. Like you said, the tip on the gray is 10% stiffer. But two shafts kind of built for, and as you guys kind of mentioned, I mean, you guys work directly with fitters. And basically it's a matter of finding which one works for your swing. And it doesn't matter which color. If you're a guy who swings it super fast or you don't have a ton of club head speed, whatever, either one of these could work for you depending on how you swing it, how you deliver it. But both of these have, when you look at kind of the tip section, and it won't be able to show here on video, but it kind of does. Both have the power grid system in there. So both have power grid label. Can you get into a little bit, what is kind of the heart of both shafts? What is power grid?
Yeah, it's a great question. So power grid is our technology, right? And that's one of the things we hang our hats on. It's the use of spread toe carbon fabrics, fabrics, and standard carbon fibers. They're going to be yarns with a circular diameter of thousands of filaments, and you got to weave these things over and under each other to make a fabric. And that's an old school type of carbon fabric, and generally they're heavier, and generally they're going to be a little softer because of this undulations of these fibers making like a over and under wave effect. And then when you pull them, they want to unspring themselves from that shape to go straight before they engage their true stiffness. And so when you get the spread toes, right, the concept there is they take that yarn that was a bundle of thousands of fibers and they spread it into a tape first. Take the tape that's already thin and spread apart, and then weave that. So now you're getting something very thin, and because it's thin, there's less resin needed to fill it. Now that reduces weight, and because it's now more flat, you engage the fibers immediately when they're stressed or they're pulled apart, right? So it's I'm not going to say we invented spread toe, right? It's been out there for a long time. Like any material, you've got to use it correctly. There is no magic bullet to a material that somehow makes just a great shaft. You still have to cook with it properly. And so for us, it was one, identifying the right types of spread toe we wanted to use, and then choosing the right fiber types for those, and putting them into a shaft that would achieve the goal we wanted. And so the goal that we were looking for was a shaft that had more feel, but can keep some stability, right? Because I think it's been a common theme in this shaft industry that stiffness is the definition of, or the requirement for stability.
Yeah.
And we were looking for ways to get that without compromising so much the feel. And so as development was going on, we would run a lot of tests, with different materials to see what combination would generate a great feel, but still keep that, relatively tight dispersion from a ball launch monitor point of view with the data we had. And,
Yep.
Alpha 1 was born from that, right? And so I think where most people are hitting Alpha 1s, they're feeling something different that's coming from both the spread toe and how we integrate that material, plus how we've chosen those fiber types in addition to the layup of the other parts of the shaft to build its, stiffness profile.
Yeah. And then with Power Grid now, is that just in the tip section, or is that something that runs a little further up the shaft, or kind of where is that?
You're inside. Okay. You're also going to see it full length. You're going to see it in multiple turns. So yeah, it's packed with a lot of tech. And the penalty to that is it's a high cost of goods. To do that. That's mainly why you probably don't see too much of that material used frequently. And I think in the golf industry, it's not uncommon to see people use great materials in small quantities because their cost. And
Yeah.
I think what we tried to do was push that limit as much as we could.
So we had got a full length, the full length counter Power Grid, the spread toe there, and then I know on these things you kind of have these little squares on here that talk about kind of profile, but there's 6 squares. So there's part of the profile that is the kind of traditional bending that we're used to, and then the second set of squares is a little bit different. What is the kind of the second set of squares on these shafts? And then they're on both, so you'll see both kind of filled, half filled, a little bit more than half, whatever. You get a little bit there to adjust the profile, but to go along with kind of the stiff mid handle kind of profile, what is kind of the other squares on here as well? Kind of explain that, because I think it's kind of a cool concept to see this on a shaft.
Oh, thank you. What I would say is those graphical treatments are what I think of as a little Easter egg for a golf enthusiast. And we don't try to put a lot of data to that, and we just want to create something more of like a legend, a visual legend to what the shaft properties, right? And so the top rectangles up there in silver will represent the torsional profile of the shaft.
Yeah, so the twist, kind of the twist of the shaft.
How stiff is it in the butt, mid, and tip? And so your 3 sections there going from, looking at, from what I see here, from my left to right, it's butt, mid, and tip.
Yep.
And I'm describing that stiffness profile in 3 sections by filling those rectangles. And if it's completely full, it means I really shoved a bunch of high modulus materials in there to really make it extremely rigid. And if I didn't do that, I tried to create more feel, and I chose certain fibers and orientations and layups to give myself a little more forgiveness. So in this case, you're seeing the top numbers, the top rectangles being a torsional profile, and if they're half full, they're just nominal stiffness. And nominal stiffness, in the butt, nominal in the mid, and then in the tip, you see that we tried to put some additional torsional reinforcement. And you're actually, that's visual at the tip side of the shaft.
Yeah.
And what that really does, Brian, is torsion a lot of times is also associated with stability, right, and dispersion. Yeah. And you could make a shaft very low torque and try to achieve that. I think it's at the sacrifice of feel. And so what I've done here is try to soften the torque in sections that I thought could generate the feel, but try to get that stability back by reinforcing it tip side where it's closer to the head, where the impact's going to be, where the torsional deformation is greatest. And so it shows out in player evaluations that we're still extremely stable, but without having to be super torsionally rigid.
Have you heard of this new company, Olukai? Olukai? It's two Italian words that mean comfort and ocean. And their shoes, they deliver. They're making a golf shoe now that are as comfortable as their legendary sandals, and I'm a guy who's been wearing the sandals for years. I know I've told you this before, but the golf shoes, extremely comfortable. Maybe you've seen them on the Brian Bros or Grant Horvat, but take it from us, you will never want to take them off. Available in both men's and women's, waterproof leather or sporty styles, spikeless, great sole, tons of traction. Get a pair now at olakai.com. Check them out. Like I said, I've been wearing the sandals for years, so the golf shoe is phenomenal. A lot of cool styles, and they even got this little heel you can like step into, fold it down, so you can just rock into the 7th or the 19th hole, grab a beverage, and hang out with the buddies and talk about the round. So check out olakai.com.
Yeah, and also too, I mean, I think when people look and you go online and you look at different shaft specs and all that, and there's a torque number there, and people kind of look at that, and if it's higher than a certain number, people go, oh my gosh, I can't play that, and if it's too low, they go, oh, I can't play that either, and they look for this number, and while that number unfortunately isn't consistent from manufacturer to manufacturer to anything, I kind of like how you represent it here, because as much as people think like, oh, I want zero torque, well, zero torque, one, like as you mentioned, is probably not going to feel that great. It's probably going to be pretty harsh. But two, isn't it too, if you get kind of too low on that torque, kind of that twist of the shaft, it can actually affect kind of your starting lines and things like that as well. It's not just a feel thing. It can affect how these shots come off the head. And if you get too low, people may not be able to hit it either.
Absolutely.
So it's one of those things where, if you
there's an interaction. You have the golfer, you have the shaft, and you have the head, right? And
yep.
Yeah, all those things, the differences will make a change in the ball flight and their impact locations. Absolutely true.
Yeah.
And,
so I mean, you maybe want.
Well, I was saying we didn't talk about those bottom rectangles, but that's the bending profile.
Yeah.
Right?
So
where is it stiff? Where is it stiffer? If you see that at the, again, from what I'm looking at the right side toward the tip, if that side is more filled out, it's a stiffer tip. And right now, that's in that blue that you're looking at, that tip side rectangle is only half full, which means it's like a nominal to us nominal stiffness. We didn't shove a bunch of high end mod stuff that make it think like rebar. But if you go to the gray, you'll see that one box is a little bit further filled. That means we went for it, trying to get that thing more rigid. That's why it's 10% stiffer. But we didn't go nuts to just pack it so that it's rebar, right? So if you ever see a shaft from me, from Aretera, where all those are full, that's basically like rebar.
I highly doubt we're ever going to see a shaft.
I don't think
I highly doubt we're ever going to see a shaft from you guys that has just full boxes the whole way across. But like I said, a very interesting thing that's more visual because, as I said, I think we get kind of wrapped up in some numbers that don't necessarily mean what we maybe think they mean. Yeah. And, that may persuade you from trying a shaft that might work pretty well with your swing. You don't know. But yeah, I like how it's interesting how it's visual there where, like you said, the tip on the blue here, which is kind of what I'm holding, is, flex-wise a little bit softer, but it's very high torsionally stiff. So like you said, it kind of adds that stability with still having some feel of the shaft, which is pretty interesting. And when I've hit both these, I mean, the big thing I noticed, I think I told you and Chris when we were talking, before we recorded the show is, just hitting these of how solid they feel. There's no harsh vibration to it. They're responsive, but they're very solid, and they kind of give this, kind of really, it's hard to, shaft description is always difficult because it feels so subjective, but it's one of those where it's not hollow or brittle or anything. It's just got a really solid feel as the shaft loads and unloads, and even at impact where, you still get the feel of where did you miss it on the face, but it still takes some of that really harsh vibration out. And both shafts have really good feel to them, whether you like the blue or the gray in terms of actual flight. They both feel really solid. And is that part of just construction, or is that part of the kind of the stiffness profile, both kind of bend and torsionally?
It is both. You can't get away from it. You can't separate that, and it was an intent of the design. And we had to go through a lot of prototypes and player evaluation to get there. When we did get there and we were, demoing shafts to key players that were, very skilled in feel and performance, they, some of the reactions we got were just overwhelmingly positive and, like big smiles on their faces saying, this is the shaft. And, oh my God, what did you do? And we're like, okay, then we've really got something here. Let's now move forward.
Yep. And then we can see, too, like you said, with the tip stiffness of the gray, you can kind of see, and I know this video here is not the most amazing, but you can kind of see the gray section, the darker gray section, which kind of alludes to the gray profile, more filled in the tip section there, which is makes it a stiffer tip. Now, between kind of a stiff and a soft tip profile, what's kind of the differences that, I mean, I guess in general, because again, we're not saying it's going to happen to every player, but in general, what are you kind of seeing with a softer tip for players as opposed to a stiffer tip?
In general, because there's more
Yeah, I mean, we're talking
on the tip side, and the head weight is down there trying to really bend the shaft at the tip side. Softer tips can make the loft increase, right?
Gotcha.
Softer tips could maybe give you additional, like a toe droop, and so from a launch and spin condition, softer tips can generally be, and then again generally, be a little higher launching and maybe more spin.
Yep.
If all things considered equal. But then once the golfer is involved and starts reacting to those things, you may or may not see that trend.
Yep. And I'm one of those people who actually did kind of notice it. I've actually been fortunate. I've had these out on the course a little bit. I've hit them on, my backyard, my net, all that. And, when I threw one of my launch monitors down and I've kind of hit both side by side, same head, just kind of swapped them back and forth, over the past few kind of weeks or so that I've had them. I mean, for me, I did notice that, and I just put it down here, that I'm about 1.2 degrees higher launch with the blue for me. And again, that's just me as my swing. Everybody's mileage is going to vary a little bit when you hit them. But for me, I noticed basically about 1.2 degrees of loft difference between blue and gray. And for me, that's pretty general. I mean, the softer tip stuff, I typically do launch a little bit higher, so that fit right in. But for me, I would probably lean more towards blue because I don't hit a very high ball. I'm a pretty flat ball hitter, so, looking at just launch, I kind of gravitate towards blue. And kind of how you mentioned with spin as well, the same thing for me. I'm about 460 RPM different between the two, blue being a little bit higher. So, like as you said, that general term fits me. It may not fit everyone, but it does fit me. But yeah, that little added launch. But I also did notice too, along with that, I was about a mile an hour faster with the blue. So, which is a little interesting as well. So when I compare the two, I mean, they're similar, but, my ball speed was a mile an hour faster with blue compared to gray for me personally.
And I think you described exactly why it's important to have multiple profiles.
Yeah.
If you were to hit gray first, you would have thought, this maybe isn't for me, and you had nothing left. But you're seeing here that the blue as an alternative, right, can really fit your swing and get you the numbers you're looking for. You bring up some interesting points, though. You're hitting, super centered shots, and you love what the result you're getting. A lot of our player testing isn't just looking for what happens when you hit center face. Of course, we're looking for people we're telling them hit it off the toe. Get that your terrible potential slice in there off the toe and see what spin you're getting. And a lot of people, we had player evaluations where comments back were, holy smokes, if I hit it back there with the same head, by the way, if I hit it in this certain part of the head, that ball would have been, spin would have been way out of control, and that ball would have been way offline, and it just, there's no other way we kept it in play and turned a bad shot to a playable shot except through the difference of having our shaft in there.
Yep. And that's what I kind of, as you mentioned, I mean, trust me, I'm not centering these at all. I mean, I'm a poor 9 to 10 handicap depending on the day, and
that's fantastic.
I definitely like to throw it off that toe or maybe low heel it every once in a while as well. And you're right. The other thing that's interesting is in kind of matching up which shaft kind of works best for you. Noticing that, like, if I do hit it off the toe, the amount of draw that I usually see depending on different shafts. The stability of this, it does keep things, reduces some of that curvature that you see while not just dropping the spin to just nothing. Sometimes you hit that shot and all of a sudden, at my ball speed, which is the low 150s, high 140s, I can't hit shots with 1700 RPM of spin. I just don't have the ball speed to keep that ball in the air. And to see, a shaft like blue that not only you don't see the big snap hook, but you also see some spin still holding on. The ball carries a little bit farther, it doesn't curve as hard, and you do end up with a more playable shot. Well, you maybe just end up in the rough there. you're still in play, you're still fine. Whereas, some other shafts that maybe don't have the same amount of stability, that ball is, you're punching out of the woods or something like that. So there definitely is stability there. And the same thing, low heel. You look at some of those shots low heel that just spin up in the air and kind of drop out of the sky. And, same thing, noticing that, with the spin number not fluctuating a whole ton, you're not seeing that thing ramp up into the 3000s or anything like that. For me, it stays below, and you get a little flatter ball flight and a little more distance out of those shots. Now, is that something kind of part of that power grid system where you're seeing that kind of helps with those shots?
Absolutely. There's no question. Right? But the spread toe material, it acts in a way that is different from a unidirectional type material, which just means fibers are only in one direction. And I like to give that description that if you look at your shirt, for example, it's woven with fibers in two directions. And if you were to pull it from one side, I'm showing you this stress here, and it's being distributed all around my shirt. That's how forces distribute if things are woven together versus individual strands, And one way to imagine that too is like if you're to go sit on a hammock and all these strands are just parallel. And once you sit on it, they're going to spread open and you're going to fall through. But once it's in multiple directions, like two, and knotted together, and you sit on one little side, you're really spreading out your stress all through these knots far away from where you're sitting or laying down in a hammock. And so Power Grid is using that kind of philosophy, right, in the design of taking that load, spreading it out, using more of the shaft to take the stress and the deformation. So store that energy more efficiently, release it more efficiently, create that stability through that fabric, right? And again, in the old days, fabrics were used in golf shafts, but the penalty was weight. If you were making something really heavy, you could get by, but as we wanted to get into things like 60, 50, sometimes even 40 gram type shafts, if you've seen 30 gram shafts, using material like a standard carbon fabric, they're heavy. And you just, you can't use too much of it. Spread toe gives you the opportunity to use more fabric because it's lighter, right? And now there's an opportunity to kind of leverage it in greater volume at the penalty of cost.
Yeah, there's always at least one trade-off, but and it's interesting you mentioned spreading that load out, especially on mishits, throughout more of the shaft, like you mentioned. Now, I got to assume that works the other way as well, depending on the tempo of the player. I mean, there's some players who have that smooth Ernie Els type swing, and they don't load the shaft excessively in a sense, and they've got that nice easy tempo. And then there's players who kind of have that John Rahm swing where it's short and just kind of quick and violent. Does it kind of work the same way? If that spread toe kind of the tip works at impact, and then at the handle section you're kind of working with the tempo of the player as well. And if a player does have that kind of quicker, faster tempo, that same spread toe material is going to help with keeping the shaft still stable at the top end underneath the hands.
Yes, and it works together, not alone, but also with the construction of all the materials and the stiffness profile and the torsional profile all work together, right? And even the weight balance point. Those are all critical parts of how this shaft performs. The two profiles, I think, fit. Again, this is a general comment, but those with the faster tempos may find that the gray keeps up with them, and is and again, beyond just the two profiles that we discuss, we also have different stiffness between the different weights, and those stiffness values they're numeric for us between 3 to 5, let's say, for 3 being something more nominal and 5 being very stiff. And so again, we bring those numbers up, we bring numerics up versus letters, because I think the stigma of what a flex is kind of very difficult to comprehend, and sometimes makes people with egos not choose certain things that may play better for them. So you're seeing us try to do things maybe a little differently, where we're not describing what the flight is because we're leaving that to the fitter, and we're not necessarily pigeonholing a flex because we are leaving that to the fitter as well, because you'll find that depending on the swing, and again, this is why we think fitting is so important, and working with a talented fitter, they'll find you the right shaft for your swing and validate that through the numbers. But for some people, that's not enough if they feel that that letter that's on their shaft doesn't align with what they think they should be using.
Yeah.
So, we're trying to get around that. And again, same thing with the color. If they think that that color is something they just shouldn't be in, or because it's been described as a certain flight, even though the numbers seem to support it, they think, man, something must be wrong, something must be broken. And, how do we avoid that? Well, let's leave it to the fitter and not make it so, let's not say that the shaft is exactly doing something so specifically, even though data can support that it can go sometimes in different directions. But we can describe, I think, very clearly how it's constructed and describe the stiffness in certain places and and even put it graphically on a shaft as a little graphical Easter egg. But it really comes down to, how you hit it, how does it feel to you? And we hope that most people who try our product will absolutely love it, for the feel aspects, for the dispersion, tightness, but at the same time, there's going to be a fraction that say this just isn't for us, and we just hope that they give it a try, right? And that's all we can hope for.
There's a lot of shafts in the market, and there's a lot of people who've tried stuff, and they claim shaft A is the best thing in the world, and shaft B is the worst, and another player will come in and say, well, shaft B for me is the best in the world, and shaft A isn't, and I think these are definitely, like you said, as long as you're at least trying it, you're giving yourself a shot. And the other thing that was interesting to me, because when you looked at these and you look at the and I'm that person, I've tried a lot of shafts, and you look at kind of the profile here and you go, oh, that handle section is a little softer than something I've typically found success with. I'm usually a guy who, I don't have a great tempo. I'm a little quick, and for me, I've typically found more success with stiffer handled products. And putting this in play, I was kind of amazed that I was more consistent than I thought I would be, because that's where I see the issue, is that I'll hit some really great drives with a softer handled type shaft, but then when things don't go so well, they really don't go well, and I'll see a wider dispersion pattern. And with this, even though the flex portion of it is softer, it's still something that I never felt like out of control with or anything like that. Even with the blue, which may come off a little bit softer, it still felt tight. It still felt in control. It never felt loose in a way, and I didn't notice anything out there in terms of dispersion that wasn't my own fault. That you didn't notice anything that was wider dispersion. And I was a little surprised by that, because again, just knowing what I've hit over the years and what I've found works well, these still held up really well for my terrible tempo, as I like to call it. But the stability was still there, and saw really consistent shots that I didn't expect to see.
I appreciate those comments. That's kind of like what we were striving to do, and I think you brought it up early in this conversation that they didn't feel harsh. There wasn't this kind of ringing in your hands for off-center hits or potentially bad shots. But that's kind of what we're striving for here. It's a great feel with great performance. Give it a try, right? Get with your fitters and give it a whack, because I think we have something here that could be very interesting for you. And, it's not the end all for us, because being a new company, we do have other products that we're ideating now and working on getting to market soon, and we're excited about that as well. Yeah,
and also too, for a 10% difference in tip stiffness is what you say between blue and gray, you definitely can feel that they're two different shafts. If you were to just spray paint these just black or whatever like that, so you didn't know which was which, I don't know that you could necessarily say, oh, this is for sure blue, but I think you hitting them, you would notice a difference between the two, and you would say, wait, this one just feels a little bit different. And I think gray and blue, as much as you say it's just 10%, 10% then can equal some feel, because when especially hitting them side by side and kind of going back and forth and putting them in heads, you definitely can feel that gray has that little bit of stiffness down to the hand, down near the tip. It doesn't turn over quite as easily. And, for a guy who draws it like I do, it was kind of nice to kind of feel that, like, well, I don't really have to worry about just releasing the club, because, there's that little bit of stiffness down there, and you could just feel it throughout the swing, which was pretty interesting, because 10% doesn't sound like a lot, but it's definitely something that you can notice.
Yeah, from a designer's point of view, it's a lot, right? There's the material choices and the layup choices. There's definitely big differences to that 10% difference.
Yeah, no, it was shocking to me. Like I said, I didn't think I'd notice it as much as I did, but it was definitely something where when you hear 10%, you hear that and you go, they're probably pretty much the same. they will swing different. When you put them on a head and you start swinging them, they will feel different. So you'll notice something there when you get your hands on it. That's for sure.
And from a design point of view too, it was it was a direct decision for us to not change a lot of other things as well, because from a fitting point of view, you have so many choices of shafts and there's so many different specs going on, whether it's the bending profile, we talked about a torsional profile, there's weights and weight variance, and there's the stiffness. And if you move, a fitter's got to work with a player and they don't have 1,000 swings in them, and so
no,
if you were to try to fine tune a player and there's so many variations going from shaft A to B to C, it could create a challenge of wondering what is causing those swing differences or ball flight differences. And I think for us, it was a cognitive decision to just isolate only a change in the tip stiffness, keeping the torque the same, the torsional stiffness profile, keeping the bending profile in the mid and the handle the same, the weight balance, and the weight of the shaft exactly the same, so that if you were to say, look, Alex, I felt a difference, and it was really, mind-blowing how different it was. It literally occurred just from that. And now you can isolate that, and now you kind of know that tip stiffness did exactly what for Brian.
Yeah.
Not as a function of, the weight was, balance point was higher, or, hey, the torsion was different. Then what caused it? You have no idea. There's too many things going on. So we're trying to simplify that.
Yeah. No, they're definitely solid. I was, like I said, I know when we talked, I kind of had high expectations anyway, just because I knew, your involvement and all that, and your past and the products that have been out. And no, they performed really well. Like I said, I was impressed with both profiles, and I hit both well. But like I said, blue is kind of my one. Launch monitor stats, it's 3 yards longer, but which I know doesn't sound like much, but hey, it's almost half a club into a green. So and anybody will take any distance they can get. But no, both work really well, and it's going to be interesting. People should definitely go to their fitter, whoever their local fitter is, try them out. I know you guys are a club champion. You're kind of all over the place now. I know when you first started out,
our distribution, right? We're small, so we're still trying to get into like the mom and pops. But Club Champion's been really great with us, and really appreciate their support. We're moving in with other places like True Specs, but those are kind of what we call our national fitting centers, but you'll find us growing into the mom and pops in your neighborhood soon. And the outreach of support we've gotten both from those national chains and even from industry experts here in Carlsbad, it's been really like touching, and it's been great to have that here, that kind of support. And I'm grateful for it. And I'm grateful to be on this show with you. This is great, you helping us get the word out. And it's fantastic.
No,
appreciate it.
I wanted to have you on. I know I got a lot of questions as soon as kind of the name kind of hit the market, and everybody kind of knew, hey, it's a new shaft, whatever. I had a lot of people asking me about had I hit him yet or whatever, and there was a little wait before you guys had enough product, and I got my hands on them, but I'm happy I did now, and it's been a whole lot of fun taking these things out to the course, both the blue and the gray, and they'll continue to both go out, because some days you just feel like you can, at least for me, you got to switch it up a little bit. But no, both pieces are really great, and if you want to try them, definitely go contact your local fitter and see if you can get your hands on them, because it's definitely worth trying out. They're stable, they feel good, and they perform. So it's a good first run, Alex. You guys did a nice job in this first run of shafts. So we'll be definitely excited to see kind of what's next for the brand. That's for sure.
Thanks, Brian. We are too. I appreciate it.
So
had a great time talking to you.
Yeah, Alex, thank you very much, man. I appreciate the time. It's always awesome to have you on. We all definitely learned something, that is for sure. And Alpha 1 Gray, Alpha 1 Blue, definitely try them out. Give them the website so they can, if everybody wants to check out more and see some more, to go ahead and check it out. What's the website?
areteragolf.com.
Yep. So ARETERA.com. And you can check out more exactly about the brand and all that. And we're excited to see what's next from you guys. So again, thanks, Alex. Appreciate the time, man.
Thanks, Brian.
So thank you very much to Alex D. Awesome having him on the show. Always fun talking to him. So check out Aretera Shafts when you can. Tons of details. They're really, really good. I've enjoyed hitting them so far. And yeah, great episode there. So if you want, please, wherever you're listening, like, subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, please like, subscribe there. It'd be awesome. I know it just helps the algorithm. I feel cheesy saying it, but would love it if you'd like to subscribe. And then also if you want to follow me on Instagram, at ClubJunkiePod. Always trying to do Q&As and things like that, answering DMs, talking golf, so it's a blast. But thank you guys for listening, and remember, Titleist Fitting Experience. If you want to get better, you want to get the best Titleist products for you, go to Titleist.com, find a Titleist Fitting Experience near you. So that's it. All we got for this week. Yeah, have a good weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.